Sarah, speech therapist here again. I've been wanting to do a video about autism, and I think this one's going to have to be a multi-part series. You already probably know a little something about autism because it seems like information about it is everywhere. But I'm going to level the playing field a bit and talk about some real basics from which to build in later videos. The current prevalence, according to the CDC, is 1 in 59 children have autism spectrum disorder. So this is a super simplified graphic, but autism as a spectrum disorder means that a person may have more severe or more mild manifestation of symptoms, and they may require more or less support to be functional in their environment. There are 2 main categories that define the child's characteristics, and they must demonstrate at least 5 characteristics within these categories in order to receive an official diagnosis. The first category is deficits in social interaction, and I'm going to review the 3 characteristics within this category. The child must demonstrate all 3. The first is deficits in social emotional reciprocity. Most children at a certain stage of development will be really interested in showing their parent an item, say like, hey, this is a cool toy, let's look at this together, whether or not they're actually using those words. A child with autism may not show that interest, that back and forth, let's share this excitement over this really awesome toy that I have. Deficits in nonverbal communicative behaviors. So that's going to be abnormal eye contact, body language, or maybe they have a difficulty understanding other people's body language, facial expressions. So the child might not ever look at someone when they're talking, so they have a complete lack of eye contact, or maybe very minimal, or maybe they have like a really intense eye contact that's inappropriate. Deficits in establishing and maintaining relationships. So just kind of a lack of understanding of how to make those relationships work. So the best example I have for this would be from The Good Doctor, the TV show. The main character is a doctor with autism, and I think his name is Sean. And he has a knack for providing usually terrible medical news without any of the niceties that you would come to expect. So that is the first main category. That is deficits in social interaction, and the child has to have all 3 of those items that I listed in order to qualify. The second category for the diagnosis is restrictive, repetitive patterns of behavior or interests. And the child must have at least 2 of these items in order to qualify, and there are 4 in this list. Stereotyped or repetitive motor movements or speech. So that's going to be the child that maybe spins around in circles, flaps their hands in front of their face, any of these repetitive motions. It might also be that they're lining up their toys in a straight line, or from biggest to smallest, or by color. So I have a patient who says the same line from Hotel Transylvania every time we talk about boats. So he always starts our discussion with this line, and then we just talk about whatever we had to talk about with the boats, because boats are things I talk about in therapy. Insistence on sameness. So these are the kids that have difficulty with transitions, whether that's transition from one activity to another. They also like their daily routines to be, fixed. The kid might say, okay, we wake up, we brush our teeth, we eat breakfast, we get dressed, and we get in the car. If there's anything that changes in that routine, maybe y'all are running late and you don't have time to eat breakfast before you leave, maybe you have to eat breakfast on the road, that can just throw everything off. I have a different patient, and we use this inset puzzle. So it has, 1 piece for the car, 1 piece for the plane, and she wants to put the pieces in the same order every time we do the puzzle, which is great. I love that people want order in their lives and they want things to be predictable, but if we put them in the wrong order, I might get hit, or she might scream or cry. So that would be that insistence on sameness. Highly restricted and fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity or focus. This is going to be the kid that constantly talks about a super specific interest without really acknowledging that the person they're talking to really doesn't care about all of the intricacies of that thing that they're so interested in. under or over reactive to sensory input. So this might be the kid that rams into the corner of the counter and just keeps going and has no idea that, it's super painful. They're going to have a big bruise later. Maybe the kid that, doesn't like to be touched or likes extreme, like deep pressure touches. An overreaction to sound. So this might be the kid that covers their ears, or maybe they walk around with big headphones on. So that might be a strategy that the family has developed in order for them to go out and function in their environment. Okay, here's a summary of the two main categories of the diagnosis criteria again. And remember that the child must display all 3 items from the first category and at least 2 from the second. So those are all the characteristics of autism. As far as definitions go, there's, the way they manifest in kids can be, super different. So that's why it is really complicated to evaluate and diagnose. There's lots of research about autism, but there's really no consensus on what the cause is. But there are many things that they think go into the cause. But it is a neurobehavioral condition, so their brain has developed a little bit differently than the typical developing brain, meaning that they are going to access their world differently. They're going to engage in their world differently. They're going to experience things differently. And I think that the most important thing about that, and really about life in general, is that all of us should be willing to, view things from someone else's perspective, so that we can say, okay, well, I don't see it that way, because we come at it from a different perspective, because our brains are built differently. But if I look at it from your point of view, I see where you're coming from and I understand. So I think just that empathy is really important, really in all parts of life. But it helps me as a clinician with children with autism, just saying, what is it that you're seeing that is making you respond this way, behave this way, interact this way, and how can I change what I'm doing so that I can better interact with you and help you be more functional in your communication and your life. So there's a couple of resources that I really like. First of all, anything from Temple Grandin is really awesome. She is a famous person with autism. I'm going to one of her talks next month, and I'm super excited about it. It'll be the second time I've heard her talk, and she always has a lot of good information to learn. So this is the first item that I was going to share with you. It's called Different Not Less by Dr. Temple Grandin. And then this is the second resource that I wanted to share. It's called Uniquely Human, A Different Way of Seeing Autism. And it is about showing autism not as a tragic disability, but as a unique way of being human, like I was talking about. So I really ascribe to that philosophy, and I think that this is a really great resource. There's a lot of information on the internet. I mean, the CDC obviously has really good information. There's also really good information on the National Institute of Mental Health. They have a good chart with the prevalence of girls and boys, and then the prevalence between different races and ethnicities, which I think is very interesting. There's also another site that I like. It's called Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, which is autisticadvocacy.org. So I'll try to post some of those resources on my Facebook and my Instagram, and please follow me there. And I'll have to come back soon with a follow-up video with more information on autism and more like the therapy strategies that we use. So thanks for joining me. Have a great day.